Please welcome to the stage CEO and co-founder of Collision and Web Summit, Paddy Cosgrave.
Hey guys, welcome to the Collision 2018 pitch final. We've presentations from the three leading startups at Collision who have seen off hundreds of rivals to make it here today. If I could just say that over 15,000 startups applied to get into the tracks outside Alpha and Beta and Growth. Out of those, about 500 of them, 600 have participated over the last 3 days. 100 were selected for the pitch competition. 10 of those 100 who competed in a quarterfinal got through to the semi-final. There were 10 seeds that were selected by some investors from around the world that skipped the quarterfinal. We then had 20 of those startups up on stage yesterday evening, and now we're down to our three finalists, Selery, Torch, and Shelf Engine. It was our biggest ever semi-final, where a total of 20 entrepreneurs pitched to a mammoth panel of 25 judges, which was a lot of fun. Today, our finalists are competing for the prize of being named Pitch Champion of Collision 2018, walking away with the prestigious Pitch Trophy. In a moment, we'll welcome our three judges to stage for the final. But this year, we're including a fourth judge, which is you, the audience. So hopefully we'll get a slide on screen in a second. After the pitches have finished, you can cast your vote on the Collision app by clicking on the bottom right of the screen. So just open the app and you'll find it. From there, you'll see an option called Pitch Final. It is one of the final tabs on the screen. And as soon as the last pitch has taken place, you'll be able to cast your vote right there in the app. Voting will remain open for 15 minutes after the final pitch. Your vote will count for 25% of the overall kind of points the judges award. So you'll be able to have a say in who wins this year's pitch final. Now, let me introduce today's panel judges. Tony Florence, General Partner and Head of New Enterprise Associates, one of the largest and most notable venture capital funds globally. Tony's one of the best in the business and was most recently featured on the Forbes Midas list of top investors from all over the world. Karen Klein is a founding partner at Bloomberg Beta, an early-stage venture capital firm that invests in startups making work better. Previously, Karen oversaw SoftBank's venture team that reviewed new investments and also currently serves on the board of directors for Paramount Group, Harvey Mudd College, and L'Oreal's Women in Digital. Jenny Lefcourt, partner at Freestyle Capital, a seed-stage firm with $230 million in assets. Jenny is certainly no stranger to startups, having co-founded and sold two of her own. Along with investing, she's heavily involved in AllRaise, an initiative which is striving to create more diversity in tech in both founders and funders. Please welcome our pitch final judges to the stage. Welcome, Tony. Karen.
Hello.
Jenny. Fantastic. So, first up, we have Jason Taylor, the CEO of Selery, an e-commerce and retail startup. Welcome, Jason, to the stage.
Hey guys, I'm Jason Taylor, CEO and founder of Selery Fulfillment. We are a third-party logistics company, and we handle inventory management, order fulfillment, and pick and pack for small to medium-sized e-commerce companies. The reason I started this business was we were actually looking for a fulfillment company ourselves. I was involved in a company that sold products online. The issue we ran into was we were too small, so most of the fulfillment companies A, wouldn't talk to us, and B, the ones that did, their pricing structure was so complex we couldn't really figure out what our true cost was going to be. Listed here are some of the problems that small companies face. Warehouse space costs, employees, materials, and shipping costs without the economies of scale. The solution is Selery Fulfillment. You sell it, we handle the rest. And this slide is really simple by design. It's meant to point out that it truly is that simple. You worry about marketing and growing your business and let Selery handle everything else. There's a huge market opportunity. In 2017, less than 9% of the almost $5 trillion retail business was done online. That's expected to grow about 15% through 2020. And as we know, everything's heading online, so shouldn't slow down anytime soon. Here's a little case study of one of our smaller companies. We did a apples-to-apples comparison to see the exact same services with Selery versus some of the competitors, and you can see it's roughly half the cost to do business with Selery. And this is what we've done the past 3 years. December 2015, we were just kind of getting started. We had about $3,000 a month in revenue. December of 2017, we had $331,000 monthly recurring revenue. And we just closed out our last month at nearly $500,000 in revenue. And this is where we're going. By the end of this year, we'll be at $1 million a month revenue. And that's pretty much a fully baked number. That's basically just taking into account companies that are in the onboarding process or have already started onboarding. So we really think we'll far exceed that number. Also, during this time, I don't have a slide for this, but our unit cost per shipment is virtually the opposite chart. So we've been able to cut our unit cost shipment by 50% every 3 months. And here's kind of a breakdown of who uses Selery today. We've got over 100 companies and growing. Also, we've kind of expanded services that we offer to our companies. So average monthly revenue has grown by 210% per customer over the last 12 months. We're in the early days of a huge opportunity to be a leader in a highly fragmented and underserved online retail market. To date, we've raised about $2 million and led by Mark Cuban Companies and Deep Space Ventures. We're around all day if anybody wants to talk about how we could possibly help your business. Thanks, guys. Sorry, we have Q&A today. They couldn't find the clicker earlier. So.
Guys, any questions?
Could you just briefly summarize like your unit economics, how you think about it from a business standpoint?
Your
unit economics.
Unit economics?
Yes.
Basically, it comes down to labor cost really at that point, and it's labor cost per order and per unit shipped. And as we've gotten more and more efficient, and scaled, it's just kind of economies of scale in the way that we've grown and gotten more efficient, adding a lot more tech to what we were doing.
Yeah, could you share a little bit more on what your edge is in terms of how you're able to deliver at a lower cost than some of the other ones that you mentioned up there?
Sure, yeah. One of the main things is actually the tech and the efficiencies that we have. Not that Amazon doesn't have that, of course, but Amazon's in a situation where they can't afford to they can afford anything, right? But they don't want to continue to build million square foot warehouses. So they're actually beginning this year to begin to outsource some of the fulfillment. So they make their storage cost so high because they need product that turns quickly, and they don't need people storing 100 pallets of product there that don't really sell. So it ties up their warehouse, without a lot of return.
And can you tell me a little bit about how your revenue, how you charge
your
customers?
Basically, we keep it really simple because, like I said, when we started, I couldn't even understand the charges that people were trying to give us. So basically, it's storage, however much product you store in the warehouse. There's a monthly fee for that, and there's a monthly fee for pick and pack. So there's a per order fee, and then it goes up once you have more than 4 items. So you have an order with 4 items, it's X amount, and then there's additional charge for each additional item. In addition to that, there's kitting charges, and if you have special projects, things like that.
And do you handle returns as well for the small businesses?
Returns?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do handle returns. And returns can vary. Returns can simply be, some companies want you to dispose of the product, so that's really simple. And we do a lot of apparel, so that a lot of that encompasses rebagging, pressing, folding that product, so there's additional fees for that. So the returns is actually a pretty good profit center for us.
And I know Tony asked this question, but on average, talk a little bit about your customer acquisition, how much it costs to acquire a customer, and then their lifetime value, approximately.
Yeah, the funny thing, I didn't mention this in the presentation, but we've done 0 marketing to date. So our acquisition cost is pretty much nothing. We've gotten to the point that we have so many incoming that sales has really more become qualifying the customer to see if it really fits our need. Because like Amazon with the space issue, it's also an issue with us. So we need companies that have relatively a small footprint in the warehouse and a high order volume. So really, we focus, there's really acquisition cost is pretty minimal.
Could you share more about what your primary channel of customer acquisition is?
Honestly, because of where we're centrally located in the U.S., a lot of companies are looking for fulfillment in that part of the country because we're 3 days to either coast. We're also looking to expand to the East and West Coast. So it's mostly been organic, people searching for what we do, where we do it. Also being tied in with the Mark Cuban companies, of course. They send over many of their Shark Tank companies as they get through the process. Those are all, startups that they're small and need help with their fulfillment. So we get a lot of leads from them as well.
Fantastic, Jason. Thanks so much. Please give Selery and Jason a huge round of applause. Up next, we have Cameron Yarbrough from Torch, a startup who, through software and analytics, want to bring the power of exec coaching to every employee at the company. Please give a warm welcome to the founder of Torch, Cameron Yarbrough.
Hello, Collision. My name is Cameron Yarbrough. I'm the CEO of Torch. We're a leadership development company. A few weeks back, I had the good fortune of catching up with Emmett Shear, the CEO of Twitch, and his company has grown like a weed. He sold it to Amazon, and now he has more than 1,000 employees. And since I'm very interested in leadership development, I said, Emmett, of the employees that you have with you today at over 1,000 people, were there any that were with you when you were less than 50 people? And he said, yes, actually, there are quite a few. And I said, what are the characteristics of those employees who have been able to scale with you? And he said, that's easy. He said, first of all, they're highly intelligent, so that's the prerequisite. He said, but more interestingly, they have a growth mindset. They have low egos, meaning they've been able to tolerate receiving hard feedback and then putting that feedback to good use to develop themselves. They've had to tolerate being layered, having people promoted over them. But what happens when you have an employee that doesn't naturally have that growth mindset? They're not particularly self-aware. Well, you coach them. As it turns out, self-awareness and growth mindset can actually be taught. At Torch, we're growing very rapidly. We're building a global marketplace of executive coaches, software, and analytics tools. And already we're doing $190,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And we've been growing at 22% per month since we launched back in September. We did that last month on a 51% margin. Why are we growing so fast? Here's why. Coaching for managers is actually a $15 billion untapped market. We believe that more than 3 million managers and individual contributors will opt into coaching if a high-quality, low-cost solution is available for enterprise. Our software matches coaches with clients and it allows the managers to log in, take an assessment, and track their goals in our analytics dashboard. My co-founder and I are the right people to run this company. I was an executive coach for many years, working with high-profile startup founders and students at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. My co-founder has a PhD in clinical psychology. He deeply understands data, testing, and analytics. In short, we are Torch, and we're building a global marketplace of executive coaches to help employees become more self-aware. We're building software and data and analytics tools to help level up employees at your enterprise. Thank you, Collision.
Over to you guys.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the coaching side, what's your acquisition strategy, and then also how much training and development is required, for the coaches?
That's been the easiest part of our business is acquiring coach supply. We advertise on LinkedIn and through professional networks, and when we actually have the funnel on, we get 3 to 5 applications a day of coaches. So it's more of the strain is about assessing the talent, and then once we find a coach that we like, then training them and onboarding them on our methodology.
So, and what's your yield, like typically in terms of how many coaches are you actually taking onto the network?
So right now we're able to service all of our customers with only 30 coaches. So it hasn't been that hard. So we can actually be fairly high touch right now with how we onboard them. But as we scale, eventually we're going to need 1,000 coaches to get to 100 million in annual recurring, right? So we're going to build more and more video tools and automated systems for training them in our methodology as we grow. So far, we've been able to be very high touch.
And what about your acquisition of your customers? Do you sell B2B or do you go directly to the end user?
It's all B2B, so SDRs has been our primary sales strategy right now, and account executives. So just going out, emailing people, cold emailing, and acquiring our customers that way. Then as we scale, we're going to be investing more and more in content marketing.
And on average, when you do get an enterprise on board with Torch, how many employees are they putting on your platform?
Right now, it's between 5 and 25.
Got it.
Right.
And so I love this area of opportunity. We see it all the time where companies are taking out the training from their workforces, and so this helps supplement it nicely. I'm curious as to what kind of data you provide, or how do you show that it's really working?
So the next big piece of software that we're actually building right now is the HR login, so that the HR department can log in and see all the data that we're seeing across the history of the engagement. Right now, what we're doing is we give each customer that onboards, they get a 360 review, and then they get goal tracking, so that the employee sees how we're measuring their progress against the key leadership domains that we're tracking over time. And we're delivering that data just through PDFs right now to the HR department, but eventually they'll be able to log in and have a dashboard, and they can, in real time, measure the progress of the whole cohort that we're working with.
And do they get manager input, like tracking as well, to see if the employee is...
HR and the manager can log in and track the progress of every employee that we're working with. So, though the content of the video sessions is purely confidential, otherwise people aren't going to share. But the content of the 360s and the goals is all visible to the manager and the HR department.
Fantastic. Guys, please give a huge round
Thank
of
you very
applause
much.
to Cameron from Torch. So finally today we have the co-founder of an AI and machine learning startup who wants to reduce food waste through automated demand forecasting. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the co-founder of Shelf Engine, Stefan Kaub.
Hey guys, my name's and my story starts about 10 years ago. So I did something a little crazy. I decided to start a food company. Now you're probably wondering, why would I do something like that? But things actually went pretty well. We grew quite a bit. We got to work with some really awesome retailers here where we were featured as the number one product at Amazon Go. And in the process of growing my company, I got to meet a certain kind of group of people that I was really fascinated by. I call this guy Gerald. Gerald is a buyer at a grocery store. And Gerald has a really complicated job. He actually needs to be able to predict the future. He needs to be able to predict the future so that he can match it up with the gross margin of the product, how much is actually on the shelf, and predict how much he's actually going to order from each vendor every day. Now, traditionally, the Geralds of the world, they're ordering something like hundreds of products a day from all sorts of different vendors. Now, obviously, it's a really hard job because what he's trying to optimize for is a profit maximizing function, putting in all those inputs and trying to figure out what that ideal order is. Now, I got really fascinated with this subject because I saw that there was a really big problem in the industry. I teamed up with a good friend of mine who is an engineer at Microsoft, and we started Shelf Engine. I left my own company to start Shelf Engine, and what we really wanted to see is, could we way outperform a human? If a human is ordering today in a grocery store for highly perishable goods, their waste is above 25% traditionally. We are able to cut that almost in half. Now, we didn't want to just offer some SaaS platform and say, hey, here, use this really cool tool, you're going to lower your waste. I said, if we're delivering so much value, why don't we actually take on the inventory risk, price it in ourselves, and then actually make a larger margin on that? So it's exactly what we do. We are able to take over 4% on all the GMV that we push through. Now, when a new retailer jumps onto the platform, they start with one product. It's usually a new kind of concept for them, right? But then they start adding on new products, more and more products. What this leads to is we actually start taking on more and more shelves in the retailers, take on more and more retailers to the distributors. What this leads to then is more data, which leads to better predictions, lower waste, higher sales, and a higher margin. So how are we doing today? We're obviously growing really fast. We've got over 100 retailers on the platform. We're growing 12% week over week. This is what a platform looks like. If you're a retailer, you hop on, you can start adding vendors pretty quickly. If you're a vendor, you have a really cool platform, rich platform, manage all your orders and all the retailers being added. But I want to conclude with this. This is our website. If you know of a grocery store or a vendor, can you send them here? Because think about how cool it would be if we were able to reduce food waste in this country, this world, by half. Thank you.
Guys?
So I'll start. First of all, it's awesome. I guess my biggest question for you is, what's the friction like if I am a grocer and I knew about you? How much does it take to onboard and start seeing the results?
Yeah, great question. So in most cases, when we have an initial meeting, we'll start onboarding the next week. And the reason why we do that is we look for a product that's really easy for them to jump into, get familiar with the process, and then go ahead and jump on board. It's pretty new for them, right? The concept of a guaranteed sale in the food industry does exist, so they understand the concept. But they're like, oh, this technology company is going to be like taking us over, like AI is taking us over. And so they need a little introduction to that, and then we can start taking on more and more
And
sales.
are they still getting the goods, even though you sort of guarantee the inventory or the pricing, are they still getting the goods from the vendor they wanted to get the goods from?
Correct. We never actually touch the goods.
Okay.
So we're purely a financial ordering platform, if you
Okay.
will. So we submit the order to the vendor. Vendor delivers all those goods, and then they monitor the waste. So we never actually touch any of those goods.
Got it.
So just because I want to make sure I'm following, you're never actually taking inventory risk? Because I thought that was part of your arbitrage or the margin that you're making.
Oh, we're absolutely taking inventory risk.
Okay.
So the way that it works is we make an order from the vendor. Say we order 100 loaves of bread. The retailer only sells 80 loaves of bread. We only charge the retailer for those 80, and we pay the vendor for those 100.
And then what happens to the 20 that, where does that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the best case, it gets donated, right?
Okay.
In most cases, it gets shared amongst employees or it goes in the trash. It's something that we're actively looking at and how we can actually work with food banks in the long run to be able, because we actually know the waste now at all these grocery stores, exactly when it's wasted, how we can go ahead and ship it over.
I'm curious where you got the training data for this.
Yeah, so what was really cool is that my first company, in the food world, vendors sometimes take on inventory risk. In my first company, we were taking inventory risk. So we were in over 400 retail locations throughout the West Coast, and so dumped all that data in there, and that was our first training set.
I'm just curious, with the consolidation that's occurred in, especially in the grocery store market, what's your strategy with the larger chains, and have you had conversations with them? And a lot of them have these kind of solutions also embedded, but they're not obviously effective.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. I've gotten an opportunity now to pitch multiple CEOs of multi-billion-dollar grocery chains. The best quote that I've gotten thus far is, and this is a $60 billion chain. He said, you know how we actually do our ordering? We have people walk through the store, look for holes in the shelves, and then they call in the order every day. That's what they do. We're focusing on smaller store chains right now, obviously. We want to build up to the larger chains. They have the exact same problem. They're dealing with it, and they don't know how to actually implement these kinds of solutions.
Fantastic. Please give a huge round of applause to Stefan and Shelf Engine. So before we go, I just want to ask the judges if they have any kind of final thoughts, and just to remind as well that you're able to participate. 25% of the scoring is down to you. You're able to log in the app, click on more, and go to the pitch final, and you can cast your vote for the startup that you think should win. So guys, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I must say, I love that you're getting crowd participation, so good job, Patty and Collision. And then it was a strong group of founders. I thought they were each solving an important problem, and so it will be interesting to see where we all end up.
Right. Yeah, all big. I mean, the other thing is, they're all in really big markets, and so I think it's, to the extent that they can succeed, they'll be big companies.
And just to layer on, I would say all pitches were outstanding. To give your entire pitch in 3 minutes and have us understand it well enough to ask questions is impressive.
Yeah, they were absolutely fantastic. So Just a huge thank you to all of the startups that participated. It's a huge number. Congratulations to the finalists, and thanks finally to our judges. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you very much.